Hey, everybody, set to go on this 9-race Thursday afternoon. Jason Blewett, Ron Nicoletti alongside. We're glad you're with us. We're waiting for odds. We got them, and we'll get the show on the road here, Ronnie. Now, the weather, it's not raining outside, but quite a sloppy main track as we start this 9-race Thursday.
Yeah, we got another batch of rain just a little while ago, so the track went from fast this morning to sloppy now, and they're working on it. It looks like it's sealed, and we'll see how that plays out the rest of the afternoon.
Definitely. We do have that $100,000 guarantee in the Jackpot Rainbow Six. And let's talk about the Rainbow Six sequence on. Beginning, of course, in race number 4. And can you tell it's an off-the-turf race there, the old 16 on top?
Well, I knew you were going to have the 16 on top no matter what after running off the pace on October 3rd.
Yep.
This is your angle, so.
with Acor. And you know what? I mean, he was able to do that and beat the bias with the victory. And clearly a wet track doesn't bother him, and his form has been pretty good. It's an interesting matchup, though, because I almost pulled the trigger in picking the 7 Soldali on top. And the 16 and 7 are going to be the top 2 wagering choices. But I'll tell you, with Soldali, as good as he's been on the dirt and on the turf for that matter, there's a lot of speed in this race, you know?
Yeah, and he might just come from off the pace today. And he was going to try and make it 2 in a row. He won it off the turf for last time, talking about Soldali on that sealed sloppy track. And Acor, as you mentioned, might end up sitting that beautiful trip. And now you how many horses? I remember how many, 7 or 8 horses?
Yeah, it's around 7 or 8 at this point.
Yeah, come out of that October 3rd race where you had to be on the inside, you had to have speed. And I think this might be the only horse that closed that day, or 1 or 2 of the only horses.
Yeah, one of, I think, a couple.
Right.
There was another horse that closed from off the pace, I think, in the last race. But again, that's been a very fruitful opening day card and opening weekend, without a doubt. We'll see how Acor does. Let's move on to the 5th. This will start the late pick 5 and a post time of around 2:35 Eastern. 6.5 furlongs. It's a $25,000 to $20,000 claiming race. And looking around, I think the 3-horse Pretty Rachel's probably the filly to beat. But like me, you don't fully trust her. She does have an effort 2 back that might theoretically make her pretty tough here. I will say, though, Ronnie, she didn't run all that well last time out, but we did see Shiny Empire, who was second in that race, coast to a big $4 win in yesterday's 4th race.
Yeah, you know, I had originally picked up the 6-horse Pray for Rain. Not that I was praying for him. We have enough of that.
We've had enough, exactly.
I like that horse a lot today. So I just bumped up my selections and got that first-time starter, life-changing event. A daughter sold that debuting for Carlos David, and that was enough to pique my interest. MCL Jaramillo in there. And I know the 9-horse had a tough beginning last time out.
Yeah, very sluggish, awkward beginning, and that 9-horse is Dawn's Sweet Smile, and we're going to take a couple of different looks at this filly by Liam's Map and that first out race for trainer Rohan Crichton. Now, keep in mind, and she's all the way on the outside. She's the number 14, red cap, or I should say yellow cap, with the green stripe, and she's immediately last. I mean, they opened up the doors, and she was out of the race, and here's just a better, more conclusive look where she stumbled, she ducked out, and she's essentially out of the early running. I think it's interesting today because not only do you have the leading trainer sending a second-time starter, which in theory I would like in general with the 9 Dawn Sweet Smile, Rohan Crichton also won that race at 4-5 with Domineering, and I'm almost wondering, poor sluggish start aside, if ultimately they felt as though she might need a race to get going in today's, like, the end game.
Yeah, and the barn is going so good, and you showed it, you know, we're having a tough beginning like that, very hard to win, not only, you know, stumbling, ducking out at the start, so certainly a major player in there, got a little further down on my ticket.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. That's obviously Thursday's 5th. We move ahead to race number 6. We're off the turf here. We're going 5 furlongs on the main track, and you've got a couple of horses that drew in as MTOs. Most importantly, the 15, who Ronnie and I have capping that cold chalk exacta with the 15 Ain't Wasting Time, who is first-time Safian for the 12-5. But as far as the horses in the body of the race, I mean, I think you and I, Ronnie, have the horse to beat, and that is the 6 Sea Trident. For what it's worth, we'll just roll the tape and back up to this horse's win a week and a half before Halloween. And there's not much to see other than a horse who clearly had no issue at all handling a sloppy track, doing it right here at Gulfstream Park West, and showed that big early speed. Does he come back, Ronnie, with that early speed and make it 2 in a row on the point.
Well, you know, they were going to try him on the turf today, and of course that did not happen. And he totally, as you can see, turned his fortunes around. He crushed this field of 25 maidens going 3/4 on that sealed sloppy track. So getting a similar situation today. Thought he was the one to beat. You mentioned the 15-8 wasting time. Now in Saffie Joseph Jr.'s barn, the drops. Comes out of a pretty good race, produced a couple of next out winners. And Saffie, I think, puts this horse in a logical spot.
He definitely does, and don't want to knock anybody, but getting this colt by City Zip off a barn that just isn't all that high profile, and now you're going out for one of the best year-round based trainers in South Florida. That is a big trainer change and a horse who has run pretty well on off tracks in the past. We're out to 2 turns for our Thursday 7th race feature, and I like this field a lot, this Florida Bred Allowance optional claimer. And one of the reasons I like the race so much is because we have a very likable horse in the mix, a soon-to-be 9-year-old son of Kiss the Kid, and that is, of course, the number 3 Just Kidding, who, why don't we take a step back 19 days ago, and we'll go to the videotape once again of this gelding who was winning his 11th lifetime race. He'll knock heads again today with the gray horse, No Getting Over Me, who did, I think, get back to one of his better efforts. And this was, not to call it a crazy pivotal race for No Getting Over Me, but there was probably a little bit of a sense of urgency. Would he, off the layoff and first time for Victor Barboza, would he pick up his feet and run and be competitive? And he was. My issue, though, with him, or maybe it's not an issue, you know, you've just got a buttoned-up favorite, in my humble estimation, Ronnie, in the 3 Just Kidding, who, when it comes down to it, is as tough and mean as a junkyard dog. I mean, he is a hard hitter through and through.
Yeah, he's an 8-year-old war horse, as you said, soon to be 9. Let's show you a stat on the horse that did finish second in there. Victor Barboza Jr. making the 3rd start after a layoff on the dirt at GPW. At this track, he's 4 for 12, 33%, 92% in the money, $2 return of investment. But Just Kidding wasn't kidding last time out, and certainly the one to beat now.
He certainly is. We both like him as the favorite. As we get on to the 8th, we'll go a mile here, around 2 turns on the dirt with this 3-and-up filly mare, 2 lifetime, $25,000 to $20,000 claiming race. And let's see, you and I in the same zip code for sure. I mean, we both putting respective premiums on the number 8, who I picked in Lake Parima, who did run okay, I think well enough on the dirt way back when she started her career. That gives me hope. Going turf to dirt for Kent Sweezy, that she'll pick up her feet. And I have no qualms at all, Ronnie, with your 4-horse in La Rusia, who just ran fine on the dirt last time out and keeps a mise out, and I just view her as an obvious major player in this race.
Yeah, this one is, I spent the most time after it came off the turf this morning when we were trying to get it together. Boy, I couldn't figure it out, and I just ended up going with La Rusia, Lake Parima for the reasons you mentioned, and All About Catherine moves to the Mary Epler barn after the claim. Hasn't really run on the main track before, but I just thought that this horse would run well. And how about Pufferfish? Just wanted to mention this for Kevin Rice. Edgar Zayas riding that horse. Got one earlier in the card. This horse been, I guess he's up from Presque Isle and have been riding on the synthetic surfaces. And I'm intrigued that Edgard's named on both those horses earlier and in this race.
Yeah, Kevin, I think it's race 1 or 2 has a horse in the mix, and I was curious because he's not a familiar name, although he comes from the family of Linda Rice and is based throughout the summer up at Presque Isle. He's got the 13, Kick It Charlie, who currently is a pretty nice price there in the early double. What is that, a 113? But no, he's only started, Kevin, 2 prior horses over a 5-year span at Gulfstream Park West. But no, piques my interest too, Ronnie. I hear you. I also think Kathleen O'Connell's number 3, Our Fantasy, has got a right to handle the dirt. I mean, clearly she's a horse that did win 3 back in the tail end of June over at Gulfstream on the main. Had no issue in Hallandale. We'll wrap things up here in this abbreviated Thursday edition of Gulfstream Park West today. We've got our 9th race. We're on the dirt here, going a 2-turn mile. I was hoping for a fast track with the 7, Dr. Samadi, and I kept my pick the same. Not that he's run terribly on a wet track, and his last race was actually okay here on October 22nd. The wet does bother me with him, so he's going to be a good price, and I was hoping a dry track today might ultimately bring out a race very much akin to his only dirt race and only career victory back in late August, but clearly that's probably not going to happen, although this main track, Ronnie, tends to dry pretty quickly. I don't know about Fast and Harrowed by race number 9, but he's my price play in the last. You're right next door to the 6, Jack B. Winkle, who in a lands in a race where there's not a lot of like consistent informed horses, and I would almost view him in a way as the horse to beat just because his last 3 or 4 have been pretty good.
You know, he's going to stretch out around 2 turns after a couple of, as you mentioned, solid local efforts, going 6 furlongs. He closed against the meet long speed bias. It's been basically favoring speed on the main track to post a pair of second-place winners. I don't know if he can get the added distance, but I did that. I just thought his current form earned him my top spot in this in the last race.
Real fast, what do you do with the 4 Mighty Fast, who finally in Lifetime Start 10 graduated, got the maiden diploma, and there was no ifs, ands, or buts. He was almost 10-1, and he obliterated a field here last week with a pretty big figure. 67 buyer for a maiden 10 on the dirt is not a number you're going to come across all that often. Is he a potential trap coming back? I mean, where did that race come from?
Well, you know, you see, if you look at the Daily Race Form past performances, they list him as a gelding. You know, he wasn't gelded from his last race, so maybe that's what turned him around. He was gelded. You know, sometimes they're not, they don't put it in the paper as soon as he's gelded. Maybe that's all simply he may have been a little headstrong. He got to put it together, and if he recreates that, he's going to beat this field in the finale.
You would think he'd be very tough, and that's a good call with the potential gelding situation. Do you like the 402 Tommy for the wet?
And yeah, you got to sort of like him a little bit in there.
All right, that'll do it for Ronnie and myself. We're glad you're with us. We turn things over to our buddy Darren Gagne up in the booth here with the Thursday Scratches and Changes.